Hi everybody and welcome to the Surface Interval in association with the 2 Minute Foundation. So coral reefs are one of the main reasons why we go scuba diving. They're bright, they're colourful, at least for the time being. Coral reefs are similar to jungle ecosystems. They're just full of life and they're very complex as well. So there are a few things that you need to remember. Literally everything. That stone over there, yeah, that's a fish. We actually call it a stonefish because we're really bad at naming things. But more importantly, that stonefish is horrifically venomous, so don't touch it. Even if you think it's a rock, it could literally kill you and it would hurt the entire time it was killing you. So most of what you can see on a reef is actually some kind of plant or an animal, and a lot of them can be quite dangerous. They have some really sharp edges and stuff. Fire coral, I mean, it shoots a bunch of needles into your skin even if you just brush up against it. And sometimes those tiny little needles need to be surgically removed from your skin. They've caused you that much grief. If you dive the same dive site at night time compared to the day, it can look completely different. Sure, it's dark, obviously, that's a given, but some things only like to come out at night, and others sleep inside the reef at night for protection. And of course, they react to light, so shining your torch on some things can get a reaction. But remember, it's not a game. If you shine your torch on a fish that's asleep, then you're going to wake it up, and it probably won't go back to sleep for the night, which is just a dick move, really. And don't shine your torch on a tiny little fish if you're swimming around lionfish. That is just cruel. There are thousands of little signs for things on a reef. You just need to know what to look for and what the sign actually means. The first one is about current. Diving in some areas can mean rip currents. The water can be perfectly still where you are because you're nice and sheltered by the reef, but 10 meters ahead of you is a current that's going to pull you away and it's too hard to fight against. Watch for the little particles in the water and the fish when they're swimming around. If the water is moving ahead, you'll start to see the little particles moving with the water. The fish will all start to swim closer to the reef and all in the same direction. If the fish are all sort of far away from the reef and just kind of swimming around doing their thing, then there's not much current. It's as soon as they hunker down closer to the reef, that's when there's going to be current. Some areas and species mean that a certain something might be nearby, or at least worth looking for. It's important to actually learn a little something about some of the fish that you're going to be looking at around in that area. This comes from just conversations on the dive boat, good old-fashioned ID books, and yeah, just experience, really. Some species you'll only see on a certain type of coral, for example, or actually hidden inside of a coral, which if you just glance over it, you'll never see it. But if you take a moment to, there they are. So once you've seen it a couple of times, you'll know that the next time that you see that specific coral, it's actually worth pausing for a little moment just to take a little peek for a certain little something spotted, whatever it is. If you're diving from a boat, then the last thing that you want to do is climb onto the back of the wrong boat. That is just social suicide for scuba divers. But boats can all look the same from underneath. I mean, dive boats don't tend to put the name of the boat on the underside, which I think is a huge oversight in my opinion for a dive boat. But it's important to make sure that you get back to the right place at the end of your dive. If you surface at the back of the wrong boat, then you need to start a surface swim around boats, which is just risky. It's never worth being a scuba diver just on the surface. At the beginning of the dive, turn around and just take a mental picture of what it looks like, where you're going to do your safety stop, and what the mooring looks like heading towards your boat. That way, when you're coming to the end of the dive, you swim out, you're swimming back to your boat or your exit. You're not going to end the dive too early because you think it might be there, or too late because you've forgotten what your mooring looks like. When you have that kind of mental image in the back of your head, then you'll end the dive in the right place and avoid a long surface swim. The reef is great. We've already established that the whole thing is basically alive and it's colourful and everything, but Facing it is the open ocean. Granted, for most of the time, the open blue water is just that, it's just blue. But too many divers only look at the reef, and they can sometimes miss really interesting stuff behind them. The big stuff isn't going to swim between you and the reef so that you'll notice it. It's going to swim out wherever it wants. So you need to turn around from time to time and look to see if there is actually anything interesting out there. Big stuff doesn't make any noise when it swims by, so the only way you're going to notice is by literally glancing out to the blue every now and then just to have a look. Now, you don't have to spend all of your time just staring out into the open blue of just different hues of blue, but every now and then just look for dark shadows or movement out in the blue. The same with safety stops as well. Too many divers, as soon as they get to the safety stop, they just switch off and they just kind of stop there and just hang, just looking at their dive computer, which isn't the most interesting thing to look at. Maybe they'll blow a bubble ring or something, but look around. You never know what you'll see on a safety stop. A lot of things underwater are surprisingly fragile. Sure, coral is basically like bone, and it's survived tens of thousands of years of waves and currents and stuff bumping into it, but a scuba diver wearing large fins that they're not really used to can just destroy it in an instant. Once coral breaks, it can take many, many years to undo the damage it's done, and sometimes you just cannot undo the damage. Every time a diver bumps into something, it can cause all sorts of damage. Not paying attention and just letting current or movements just carry you into the reef is a big no-no. So pay attention and make sure that you leave plenty of space so that you won't bump into things. The oils from your skin and things like suntan lotion, even your hand cream, is going to start to seep out into the water and it can damage the reef. Sure, it might not be very much, you only put a little dab on, but when everyone else adds a little bit more, it just adds up. And we're only talking about microscopic animals and plants, so a tiny amount for you is just a catastrophic amount for them. So even by touching a rock, that is in fact a rock, you could be killing the algae or the sponge or all sorts of things that's growing on top of it, which in turn means there's nothing for the small critters to eat and nothing for the bigger critters to eat, and you've ruined the entire circle of life, and now Elton John is not going to be very happy with you just because you touched a rock with your bare hands. And there's 5 things that you should remember when reef diving. The main things are just to pay attention, really. Where you've entered, where you're going to exit, where the current is, where critters are, and, just good old-fashioned don't bump into stuff. Also, remember to check out the 2 Minute Foundation. They do some amazing things to help clean up our beaches, and as scuba divers, we can help them out as well. There's going to be a link in the description to check them out, and below this video on YouTube will be a banner to our spring store where you can buy some scuba diving t-shirts and hoodies, and if you use the promo code SURFACE15, you might just get some money off your order. I can't promise anything, but a little birdie told me that that was a promo code sort of thing. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.